Hi everyone, my name is Steve LeBlanc and I am a product specialist here on the cloud team at InterSystems.
And I am Rick Guidice. I am a senior cloud engineer at InterSystems.
So yeah, I'll just give a quick overview kind of what we'll talk about in this session, and some stuff you'll probably have seen in the keynote earlier today and some other sessions, but then we're going to so first we're going to start talking about IRIS Cloud SQL, a new service that we are launching here. A little bit deeper than what Sam did a great job covering in the keynote. Good job, Sam. Then I'll kind of step back and give a wider view of InterSystems Cloud services. I'll talk a little bit about some of the other services that are out or we're working on, and then talk a little bit about kind of our roadmap, where we see going in the next couple of months, years. So then I will go and give more of an in-depth overview of some of the features of IRIS Cloud SQL before turning things over to Rick to walk through a demonstration. I'll pause for some questions after that, and then we'll talk about the high-level application architecture of the IRIS Cloud SQL service, and then talk about the availability, where you can get it, when you can try it, things like that. So with that. All right, so InterSystems IRIS Cloud SQL, kind of the elevator pitch for this service is, deploy a SQL endpoint in the cloud in a minute. If you want a fully managed, secure, highly available, everything you'd expect from InterSystems, a database service, this is where you can go. It's an on-demand service, so spin it up when you need it. It's pay-as-you-go, so you don't need to procure hardware. You don't need to go through the process of getting a license over and license keys and all that. It's pay as you go, spin it up, pay for what you use. It'll be t-shirt sizing, so we've got small, medium, large, where you're choosing your instance type, so the number of vCPUs, as well as a starting point for the storage that you're going to use. And then you have the ability to bring your schemas, import schemas or create schemas, load your data. You can load CSVs. You can load them from just locally through the portal. You can do everything over JDBC, ODBC. So we've got some tools within the portal to import, to work with data, to a SQL editor. But you can also connect to client applications and using any of the InterSystems SQL drivers. So there we go. Oh, right. So who's this for, right? We're developing a handful of cloud services. We'll be developing more, and really it's about offering discrete services, parts of IRIS that you need and you can spin up easily. So the SQL service in particular, it's for a full stack developer. They need to just quickly deploy a relational database, get a SQL endpoint that they can just start working with. You might be developing an innovative healthcare app, a financial app, whatever, just you need a relational endpoint. And for now, that's SQL, but as we'll talk about, integrated ML, new columnar storage, additional offerings from InterSystems, we obviously see being able to offer all these as discrete services. It's for someone that doesn't want to worry about managing their database clusters, setting up HA, mirroring, creating backups, and taking care of all that. All those database management tasks, you can leave it to us and just get going on your application. Advantages are easy to spin up, comes up in under a minute, it's fully managed, and it's fast. It's all the high-speed performance you'd expect, and just a really quick time to value. Now, you may have seen this slide, I think, in the keynote, but just to reiterate kind of the path of our offerings. So we've been available in various public cloud marketplaces for a couple of years now. So IRIS and IRIS for Health are available just to spin up through AWS Marketplace, Azure Marketplace. That gets you a deployment in your own account, in your own VPC for you to just take and manage yourself, and that's great. Then kind of moving into more of a PaaS offering, we do have IRIS and IRIS for Health available as a managed service. Those are available through our managed services team. And the Health Connect Cloud offering, there's some sessions on that, but that's more of a past offering. Your like InterSystems is kind of your data center. They may be deploying in the cloud, they may be deploying in our data center, but those are available as well. But now we're moving in a direction where we're starting to offer a lot more software as a service offerings. So, kind of further abstraction from that. There's a handful of fire services, some of which are already out there, and you can go spin them up today. And it's really about offering just discrete services, parts of IRIS that you can use to accomplish a specific task, as well as composable services where you can spin up multiple services that work together, you connect them together, use them how you wish, and just pay kind of for the little slices of that you use at a time. So there's the fire services, financial services, applications, more to come there in that vertical, and then just kind of horizontally the cloud SQL, cloud integrated ML, and then future data models that are on the roadmap that will be available as cloud services as well. All right. So where are we right now? I mean, we have the InterSystems Cloud Portal. This is a single portal that you can deploy any and all of these services from one place, just on-demand offerings. We leverage Kubernetes for the IRIS Cloud SQL service and a number of others, and longitudinal storage underneath. That's Longhorn currently, so distributed storage handling that we've built into the architecture. And kind of the way that we're focused on optimizing price performance, so we want to get you the best performance as possible at a good price. So we leverage things like AWS Graviton for high performance at a lower cost, things like that. We're always looking for different ways in our service end to optimize price performance and get you the best thing there. So where we're going, again, I mentioned leveraging this cloud core architecture to bring you additional capabilities. So, I think in the keynote yesterday, Pat talked about the Fire SQL Builder. So, we've got our IRIS Cloud SQL database, we've got our Fire service, being able to get a view on top of that to get Fire data, to get a SQL interface to get over Fire data for analytics. That's one type of service. Integrated ML, there's a session tomorrow that will go into more detail on that feature within IRIS Cloud SQL as well. Again, right now this is deployed on AWS, but we, as always, intend to be a multi-cloud. We do have managed service offerings in the other clouds as well. And this architecture was built in such a way that it's portable to be able to run in other clouds. And we'll just be building more automation, all the monitoring and alerting, the auto scaling, taking care of high availability, features along backup and restore. Everything you expect from an enterprise service will be there. It'll be there day one, but we're always looking to further improve, and I'll plead for your participation in the early access program and feedback later. So anything you might have to say on that, we'd love to hear it. All right. So just to get into some of the features, I won't go through these bullet points because I think I have a slide on each one of them. But yeah, so I mentioned t-shirt sizing. You'll go into the portal. You'll be able to select from a handful of sizes initially, of the instance size and the initial storage that you'd want to start out with. So external connections, I mentioned the ability to connect via any of our InterSystems drivers. We've made it very easy to just go and download one of those drivers and point it at your deployment. And everything is secured over TLS. Of course, the security is encryption at rest, encryption in motion. The ability we take nightly backups, and all the backups are encrypted and stored in S3 at this point. You've got the ability to Once you have a deployment up and running from the portal, you can import files, whether that's DDL to bring your schemas over. We support a number of conversions from other database types, and the ability to bring in CSV data up to a certain point. You can do that from the portal, or if it's a larger data set, you can do that from an S3 bucket. All right, so this is just, Rick will dive into this in the demo, so I don't need to spend much time on it. And then, the SQL editor. So right there from the SQL portal, this really just to help you get going in a minute, right? You got the deployment, get in there, and start running queries, creating indices, whatever you need to do. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rick for a demo.
Great, thanks, Steve. So I'm just going to run through a demo of the Cloud SQL service. And for those of you in the keynote this morning, you saw some of this, but hopefully cover a few more features that were demoed this morning. So this is our Cloud Services portal. As we enter here, I have one deployment that's already running, but we're going to walk through creating another deployment here. So first, we're going to create a deployment. We have some options for which services are available here. Right now, we're just going to stick with the Cloud SQL service. In this particular environment, we're only allowing an instance of small, but as Steve mentioned, there's small, medium, large, extra large that you could choose from. Our connection details. So we do want to allow enable external connections, and for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to allow unencrypted connections. But we do recommend using encrypted connections, and I'll show you where that could be set up once the deployment is running. We're going to give it a password, and this is the password that we're going to use to connect to our IRIS instance. And our cloud options here is AWS, and we have a few regions, US East 1 and EU Central 1. For now, we'll just create it in US East 1. Give it a name. Can review our options here for what we're going to create, and we'll just go ahead and create this. So, as Steve mentioned, it takes about a minute to come up. I'm just going to jump into this one here that's already been created, so we don't have to wait for that. So in the deployment details, it gives details about the deployment. Shows what our current deployment size is, the storage, the cores, RAM, the version that we're using, and what region it's been deployed in. You have the ability to shut down the service if you're not using it, or to resize the deployment here. We can come in here and change the deployment size from a small or medium, large, or extra large after it's already been deployed.
So does shutdown delete it completely, or does it just put it into like a cold state?
It puts it into a cold state. Yeah.
Yeah, it pauses the compute, so you're not paying for that compute while it's running, but the data remains. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the external connections here, we shows that they're enabled. We're currently allowing unencrypted connections, but here we're using encrypted. There's a self-signed certificate that can be downloaded to set up on the client side. And also we can specify specific IP addresses or ranges that we would allow to connect. Our host name here is the endpoint that we're going to use to connect to this, and we need this other connection information to access it from external connections. A couple things I want to also point out: the connection drivers. If you don't have the drivers loaded on your system, you can use this button here to jump to a link that shows where you can download the external connection, the drivers for these external connections, as JDBC, .NET, DB API, etc. For the purpose of this demo, I'm going to be using JDBC. So the first thing I want to do here is import some files. And when we go to import, we're going to have to log in. So this is the IRIS password that we put in. All right. Okay, we have two different file types to import. The DDL or DML statements or CSV data. And there's these info buttons you might have noticed on a few of these features here that give more details about the option that we're going to select. So really, when we're doing an import, and it's going to be an import DDL or DML, what we're doing is building up a statement, and we're really invoking this this class method here. So, clicking on this, we can give you details of what that class method is, in case you're curious on that or what's supported. So in this case, we'll do a DDL. We support a variety of different database vendors and formats. In this case, we're going to use IRIS, and we're going to go ahead and upload some files. So we're really just going to be working with these two schema files, but I'm just going to select all of them because we'll use the data files in a minute. All right, so we have the 4 files uploaded, and we're going to be working with our TPCH customer schema and our data test person schema. Now we can look and see what's in these files using view file, and we can see that there's just a create table command here with a handful of fields. Same with a schema test person. There's a create table command here as well with a very basic person table. A couple other options we have here and actions we can do is download the file if you want to download it through your web browser to have it locally, or delete the file. So let's just go ahead and we're going to import these two. And this is, like I mentioned, this is invoking the import DDL class method. And it shows that it prepared, executed, and it was done, prepared, executed, and done there. So we should have those two tables now in our database. We're going to load some data. I choose IRIS. In this case, we're going to use this data file here, and we can look to see what's in that file. And there's a handful of inserts that will insert data into this table. So we'll go ahead and select that and import it. And those are all complete. Great. Let's use data from a CSV file. And importing from CSV is really going to use our SQL load data command. And there's details on that load data command, what that does. So we're going to walk through loading the CSV. And one thing we're going to do when we load the CSV is you have to know what the format of your CSV file is. So in here, we're just going to look at what's in this file. This is kind of ugly, but we'll notice some of the key pieces. It does not have a header row, and it's using a comma as a field delimiter. So when we go to import that, it's going to ask us what table we'd want to import into. We're going to select TPCH customer. It does not have a header row, but if it did have a header, ideally you'd want, if it has a header and the field names match the header, that's the easiest. In this case, it doesn't have a header, so it's going to give us a list of columns in the table to match up with the column order in the file. In this case, this list here matches what's in the file, but if they didn't, if name was at the end of the file, you could drag this down and put name at the end. A couple other options that are available with the load data command, rows to skip after the header, which doesn't apply here. A line separator, it's just going to be a new line here, and the column separator have a comma, but if you had something else like a pipe or something, you could change that. So let's go ahead and import this. And it shows us the output, shows us which table it got imported into, and shows us that there were 1,000 rows that were imported. So our query tools, and Sam showed this a little bit this morning, shows our schema tree, which tables we currently have in our database, and we can execute queries from here to pull up the data in there. So a simple query here shows the results. This history tab will show a list of SQL statements that were executed in this particular session, so you could jump around to those. The next thing I want to demo here is connecting from a third-party application. And I'm going to connect using dbeaver. And so this is the information here that we're going to need in order to be able to connect. We're going to need the host name, the port, the namespace, and then the username and password. So,
Quick question.
yes.
I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of cloud database services that have come. Over the last 10 years, a lot of cloud database services have come up. Can you share a little bit about how this is unique and different, and some of the benefits over going a lot of the garden variety kind of horizontal offerings?
Yeah. So, it's probably going to be similar to your experience with the number of cloud databases that are out there. I think for us, it's a building block. It's as it is, it's a SQL database endpoint that runs really fast. It's on InterSystems technology, and if you use InterSystems, it's a new way to experience it. But as we bring on integrated ML and our columnar storage and our document database, it's the additional features. It's kind of all leveraging the same architecture and composable services. It's kind of one in our many roadmap of cloud services that we're offering. Does that answer your question?
I apologize if I missed this being announced this morning. Will it be kind of like eventually like you log into your Azure portal and you have everything that you can do across all kinds of SaaS and PaaS? Is that sort of the vision?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. That is the vision of the cloud portal, being able to deploy any one of these building block services and link them together as the service permits and things like that. Yep.
Great. So we're in dbeaver now, and I'm just going to create a new database connection. And we'll select IRIS from the list. And this is where we need our connection information. So let me switch back here. We'll copy our host name. And our database is user. Just test the connection. It shows that it was connected successfully. So now our dbeaver application has a connection to our deployment in AWS. So if we create a script, just run a simple query in here. TPCH customer. When we run this, it queries in and returns back the data from our IRIS Cloud SQL deployment. So I'll pause there for any other questions on the demo. Yes.
Do you support any framework connection? Do you support Entity Framework connection?
Could you be more specific? What kind of thing?
So in my applications, I use Entity Framework to connect to the database. So I can just do link queries inside my code in my applications instead of connecting through the drivers and then running a SQL statement and a store procedure and all that. Do you guys support that?
Right now, we're just supporting the external connection drivers, through these connections here: ODBC, JDBC, DB API.
Are you planning on going to support Entity Framework?
We'd love to hear what your specific use case is. Sure. Let's talk after. We can.
Okay.
So with Cache, I used the gateway connection quite a bit. That looked a little bit like the gateway connection, where you could have a Cache instance go reach out to anything else as long as you had the ODBC driver on the back end and you set up and configure it. Is there any plans for the future of being able to do something like that where, you have to be able to drop the ODBC driver down onto the Graviton EC2 instance and go out and connect to something else and then bring that data in a more organized fashion like that? And the reason why I ask is that's how we bring in data for data conversions from non-IRIS or cache databases.
Okay, so like using the server basically as the client to go and fetch other data. Yeah, as of now, again, not.
Yeah,
no plan,
it looks similar, so it kind of
Yep.
like this would be a really cool use case for it.
Yeah,
So, and since you guys already have that, it
Right,
might be an easy port.
cool. Yeah, and again, I'll talk about that early access program and try to get my recruiting hat on, but that's good feedback. Anything, real use cases that you can see and things that would make this
Well, yeah,
better
that's
for
the reason why we spin that up just to pull data, and then we spin it down because we already got the data over in our actual application.
Gotcha, so even just a
It's a
service that,
transformer,
Great, thanks.
How do you compute or calculate the licensing costs? So right now, if it's an on-premise solution, you calculate depending upon the number of users that connect to the database. So on this cloud, I don't see any options over here, but
I'll talk about it after the architecture. Thanks.
Any other questions on the demo part of it? Now I'll jump in and talk a little bit about the high-level architecture here. So this is probably a little small for you to see, but you can get the slides afterwards, and they're in the app. But the high-level architecture here for the IRIS Cloud SQL, deployed in the AWS cloud, but we tried to use a lot of components that were portable to other cloud platforms, as Steve mentioned earlier. So we're using a Kubernetes backend, and we're using the EKS, and we have it currently deployed in US East 1 and EU Central 1. With the different availability zones. We also use, currently using Longhorn as our storage, but also evaluating other storage options. The connections as I mentioned, the external connections, JDBC, DB API, et cetera, encrypted and direct access to the IRIS instance. And through the portal user comes in through the API, and there's an API gateway that runs a handful of lambdas to interact with the IRIS instance in the back end. So,
All right.
so Steve's going to talk a little bit about availability and some other resources for you.
Yep, so as I mentioned before, it's initially will be available in AWS, but the architecture was built in such a way that it is portable to any cloud service, to manage Kubernetes service or anywhere that can run Kubernetes. And the billing, it's built along the two metrics that basically you choose when you choose a t-shirt size. So you pay per CPU hour and for the amount of gigabytes of storage that you end up using. I don't have the actual dollars and cents here, but that's still a bit to be determined. But it's similar pricing to the InterSystems Fire service that's already available in AWS, so it's built along the same metrics at least. And I mentioned the early access program, so this pre-release service. Oh, we run out of time. Pre-release service. So starting now, you can sign up for this and any of the early access programs that we're offering, and the Cloud SQL early access program will start on Monday. So once we get a list of people that sign up, we'll send out a kind of a survey that asks you just a couple questions like what use cases you have in mind, maybe something of your experience with InterSystems IRIS SQL in general. As well as interest in integrated ML. So that won't be a part of the early access program that starts on Monday, but we really want to see who's interested in it and reach out to you as soon as we have something available that you can try there as well. Rick, oh wait, I have it. Some of the other cloud sessions, the on-demand cloud services ran right before this one. Maybe some of you were in there, I'm not sure, but if you didn't see that, you should, because Sam gave a great overview of the cloud core architecture in general. So, Rick talked about the cloud SQL architecture, but Sam talked a lot more about the architecture that we've built out to support all of our cloud services going forward. And then tomorrow, there's a presentation on integrated ML. So it's building out, it's using the same environment that Rick was using for this demo, but going more deeply into the integrated ML features that we've built out and have coming soon. And then, yep, just I'll leave this slide up, but this is all of the early access programs that we're recruiting for here at Summit, and they're all starting either now or in the next few days. So yeah, if you're interested in any of these, trying them out, we really want your feedback and to know how you plan on using these services and what you think we could do to improve them or make them more interesting or anything like that. So thank you. If you have any questions, we'll be here. Anything can answer for the room? This is the presenter of our integrated ML session tomorrow.
And I'm trying to clarify my understanding for
Yeah.
that. I think Rick said this is dynamically scalable, so when that feature is available, you can deploy a certain size and then you can just drag it to the other extreme and your deployment will just grow with your needs.
Exactly, yep, that's the idea.
Thanks.
And you can go both ways on that. You can go big and then go back smaller if you need to.
I'll ask that question for him. Can you go backwards as well?
Yeah, that's the idea.
Change your mind when you want.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, well, thanks everyone, appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.